nervous because I'm here now.
Hey guys, welcome into another episode of 410 Sports Talk. James Haskell, Glenn Martin, and back again, friend and guest of the show, Tony Thornton. Tony, thanks again. But what we're going to do now is we're going to get into an interesting debate. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to debate the impact and which one will be the deciding factor between the rushing attack of the Ravens, the passing attack of the Buffalo Bills, and talk about which one will end up leading their team to victory. But before we do, if you take a second, hit the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, make sure to leave your comments in the comment section, and then also leave us your thumbs up as well. We'd appreciate it. So the question is, gentlemen, and Glenn, I'm going to go to you first on this one. The question is, the Ravens have in the past 6 weeks, they've ran for the most rushing yards in a 6-week span in NFL history. I think it's a little over 1,600 and change. Right around there. And the Buffalo Bills, though, their passing attack, while their rushing attack is pretty much their quarterback, their passing attack has been, on fire, white hot, between obviously having the leading receiver and Josh Allen making a huge jump between last year and this year. So which one in this specific game do you see having a more, making a more impactful statement on this game?
Yeah, this one's a tough one for me. I think the weather could end up eventually playing a huge part in this, but we're going to assume that they're playing in just cold weather and not snow for the purposes of this conversation. But I want to set the scene a little bit more. Josh Allen on the season did have 37 touchdowns to just 10 picks and completed his passes at a clip of 69.2%, which is a 14% increase from the previous season. In what may be the biggest increase in NFL history. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a bigger increase in one season to the next than 14 completion percentage points. That's incredible. What he's been doing has been insane. And obviously the beneficiary of a lot of that is their all-pro, all-world wide receiver who they acquired in the offseason, Stephon Diggs, who I think every Ravens fan is familiar with if you're also a fan of the Terps. And he led the league in receiving, both receptions and yards. So, they're obviously prolific through the air. But as you mentioned, Jimmy, the Ravens are prolific on the ground. Look, the leading rusher it was Singletary for the Bills. He had 687 yards. Well, the Ravens did significantly better than that in three different guys. So, Gus went over 700, Dobbins over 800, and of course, Lamar over 1,000. And as you mentioned, a record-setting offense as far as ground control. To me, the biggest, the factor, the weather is the biggest factor to me, because I think if they're playing in perfect weather, the Ravens rush attack is just going to be too overwhelming. I look at last week's game. I see what Jonathan Taylor was able to do on the ground, what Naheem Hines was able to do on the ground, both of which are good players, but neither to me can impact the game like the Ravens rush it. Whether Jonathan Taylor's a better back than Dobbins, but in this game, we know that Dobbins is going to have more success on the ground than even Jonathan Taylor did. And that guy went absolutely bonkers. So, look, I don't want to filibuster. I'm going to go to Tony here because I could just keep going on for hours, but I'm going to go to Tony. But my right now I'm on Camp Raven. What do you think, Tony?
Well, I think it's easy to go with Camp Raven based on what they've done this year in terms of their rushing attack. They clearly can run the ball well. And we noticed in the first half of last week's game against the Titans, the run game was kind of stifled. And that was because of the type of defense the Titans were actually playing. And of course, Greg Roman made adjustments in the second half to kind of open up the passing game to kind of now get that running game going. And we know how great Lamar Jackson is using his feet. We know how great J.K. Dobbins has been. Tough guy too, by the way. That touchdown run he had last week was remarkable. He's just become this little bowling ball running through people now. But, Josh Allen, I've watched him all year. This guy last week, completed 75% of his passes. He had 324 yards. He was throwing darts. Literally darts on the sideline. If you remember that game, he was making throws going to his left, throwing and really throwing darts on the sidelines to Stephon Diggs. And he is so good. And if the Ravens, who we know blitz heavily, they're going to go after him. I've heard this week Wink says we're not changing. We're that could be just coaches speak for now, but we're not changing. We're going to go after him. And Josh Allen is very good against the blitz, just like Mahomes is. So my concern would be, I think Josh Allen the passing game might get a little bit of the best of us early on. And I think that if the secondary can just hold tight, that might help us. But I know we're going to come after Josh, and at some point we're going to wear him down and get at him. But I think right now I would give a slight edge to their passing game based on what I've seen. Now, to your point, if there's snow, if there's any kind of slippage that to start the game, that's going to probably the ball's going to be cold. Catching the ball, it's going to be kind of difficult. But I would give a little bit of an edge now to Josh Allen in that passing game, just based on what they've done recently in the playoffs. Again, we know our rushing attack is second to none, but I just think that Josh Allen has just been playing lights out, and that's the guy that I'm very concerned about right now.
As Tony and Glenn, they know me well, and for all of you that have been watching the show for a while, you probably know that it's hard for me to pick anything but the Ravens. But I just want to say this, I'm gonna pick the Ravens rushing attack in this scenario. So no surprises there. But it has nothing to do with me, minimizing the impact of the Bills passing attack. But I have a couple concerns. One is that Cole Beasley is banged up. I think he's got a knee, he's got an ankle, and it looks like John Brown came up a little limp in that last game as well. So I think what ends up happening is they become even more dependent on Stephon Diggs, who's incredible. I mean, he's the best receiver in the league this year, statistically speaking. So, I'm not trying to do anything to minimize what he's done this year, but I think that the Ravens in the secondary have the ability to contain him to a certain extent, if the other guys aren't going to be 100%. Now, how many teams are 100% at this point? But I think that having that unit and those guys more healthy than not is a big difference than just having Diggs out there trying to do it all. He could still go out there and do it. And obviously Josh Allen, just like you guys mentioned, has made tremendous leaps. But I think it's about the health in their wide receiver core and the dependency that they have on it. While at the same time, the Bills right now, so this is why I'm in favor of the Ravens. They are leading the league in yards given up per carry for rushing attempts outside of the tackles on the perimeter. So that means to me, Lamar is going to eat. That means that JK is going to eat. And even Gus, look, everyone talks about Gus up the middle, but Gus will bounce it out. He'll get out there as well. So to me, I think they're going to have serious issues. The pressure that we're going to put on them on the edges with Orlando and I mean, even pulling Bozeman and things like that.
Yeah.
And then I love, with JK coming across, I like the little addition they've made into the offense in the last month or so. So I'm going with the Ravens rushing attack.
Wow. Well, I mean, look, it's hard to argue when you talk about we're not just saying this is the best rush attack in the league. We're talking about in the history of the league, this is the best rush. So it's hard to argue that. But here's what I'll say if I was going to play devil's advocate, especially if there's inclement weather. I think the thing that the Ravens need to have in this game is pass rush. And one big equalizer is a mucky, muddy, snowy footing where you cannot accelerate up the field. And it's already hard enough to beat a 320-pound lineman. But if you have no footing, it makes pass rush that much more difficult. So I think if there is inclement weather, you got to start to think Josh Allen's going to be able to hold the ball an awful long time and give his receivers a chance to get the ball down the field. You mentioned Cole Beasley, and I agree, he was hurt. But he was hurt last week. He was limping in between plays. He looked like he could barely walk, and he had 7 catches on 7 targets for 57 yards. The guy, I mean, he's just a gamer. He looked like J.J. Hardy trying to get down the field in between plays. But when that whistle was blown, I mean, he was ready to go, So, and this is what worries me. If Josh Allen is able to buy time, get outside the pocket just this season in 10-plus air yards with throws being thrown on the run. So if the ball is traveling 10 or more yards in the air, and it's being thrown on the run, he's first in completions, he's second in attempts, third in passing yards, third in touchdowns, and third in total EPA, which I'm not exactly sure what that means, to be honest with you. But my point is the guy likes –
he's high up there.
Yeah, he likes to extend the plays to get those big chunks, and that's what worries me because look, we all love Humphrey around here, but if there's one area, I mean, he struggles sometimes locating the ball in the air on the deep ball. Well, he better get good at it this year or this game, and we better see a safety over the top helping on Diggs because that's what worries me. Does he buy enough time? So, Tony, I want to ask you this. If the Ravens pass rush isn't there, which the pass rush has been good overall, but there's been times where it's been, relatively non-existent. If the pass rush struggles to get to Josh Allen, could your opinion of this kind of change? Do you think that air attack could take over the game?
Well, Tony he picked the air attack.
Oh,
Well,
he
yeah,
did.
well,
Okay, well, there you go.
and I'm picking him just a slight edge because of because of Josh Allen. I mean, he's certainly special, and I'll be quite honest with you. We need to get a couple of sacks. We can put pressure. I know Yannick and I know Judon, who hopefully will be healthy to play. I know he had some illness this week, but I'm sure he'll be fine.
That always scares me now.
Yeah, I saw that on the injury report. I didn't know what that was. But at the same time, if Judon's there, if McPhee, I think you have to put your hands on Josh Allen if you allow him to kind of move around, because he'll change the pocket quickly. And that's what scares me the most. And as long as, Marcus Peters is, he's a very good corner in terms of making plays, but he loses patience sometimes if the play takes too long. I just want to make sure Marcus stays home and really, not really just jump at the ball. If they can do those things, I think, to your point, they can contain them. And I think, again, I give it a slight edge over the running attack. Last week, just as a point of reference, with the first half, the Ravens they did some good things trying to run the football, but in going back and looking at some things, they didn't really execute. There were some blocks that were missed. There were some wide receivers that missed blocks on the edges that could have opened up some other holes for a Lamar. And I think if they can execute, and that's the key, execute in the first half, because I know they're going to come out running. They're not going to come out and surprise anyone in this game, the Ravens. They're not going to come out on first down and throw it down the field. They're going to pound the ball. And if they can execute with those pulling guards and tackles and with the wide receivers blocking, I think they can control the time of possession. Then the edge goes back to them, obviously. But I just think Josh Allen, it's going to take patience with the secondary the Ravens have and not allow these big chunk plays. If it's 3rd and 9, they're going to pin their ears back and they're going to go after Josh. But once he moves out of the pocket, that secondary has got to be patient enough to stick with Diggs and to stick with Cole, with Cole. And the linebackers have to be patient. Don't get the dump off to the running back. So those kind of things I'll be looking for early on. But I just think Josh Allen is just so different. It doesn't mean that they can't win the game, the Ravens.
Right.
If Josh Allen has a big game, they can still win the game. I don't think that's far-fetched because they can control the time of possession. And it might be whoever has the ball last wins this game. And we have the best kicker in the league. So it's interesting, this matchup. I just think it's kind of even, but I give the slight edge to the passing attack for Buffalo.
So let me ask both of you guys this really quick, because you bring up a great point. There's going to be a lot of pressure on the secondary just with Diggs alone, not even including, of course, we know John Brown. We know what he can do. We know the speed that he brings to the game. If nothing else, the guy is I mean, he's not Hollywood Brown, but I'm sure in his prime, he would keep up with Hollywood stride for stride.
He would, yes. Yes.
So, and then Cole Beasley obviously is a really shifty slot guy who knows how to get open. So if you have a guy like Diggs, where last week we saw Marlon struggle against AJ Brown, and I actually liked that matchup because I think that Marlon plays into the physical game where AJ is physical and Marlon can then be physical back. But obviously he got sunned a little bit by AJ Brown. Not the entire game. He also made some plays. Namely that big play against Corey Davis.
Right.
Well, that wasn't against AJ. Corey's also a well-constructed receiver himself. But my question to you is this, is that I'm sure that they're going to give him a lot of different looks, but who would you prefer to see on the majority of the snaps, covering Diggs, and who are you most nervous about when you see Josh in that shotgun and it's empty and you see Diggs out there on an island and you see one of our corners out there, who's going to make you the most nervous? So either one of you guys pick it up, but let me know what you think.
Well, I'm going to jump in here. I because my answer is the same guy for both, Jimmy. I want to see Marlon on Stephon Diggs because I think Marlon is our most physical press corner, and I think you got to disrupt Stephon Diggs at the line of scrimmage, and who better to do that but Marlon? But at the same time, if I see the ball in the air, like you said, 30, 35 yards down the field and no safety help, I'm holding my breath and wondering, can Marlon locate the ball in the air? So I'm kind of torn on that. I think you definitely have to have safety help over the top, no matter who you have on him. But I'll say this, let's not, I know that Beasley, Diggs, and Brown are going to get all their, a lot of attention, but man, they spread this ball around. Isaiah McKenzie, he has 5 touchdowns in the year. I didn't hear about him until a couple weeks ago when he exploded for a big game. Yeah. And then I look at, seven touchdowns from Gabriel Davis, who I just saw do an interview on NFL Network. I honestly didn't know much about the guy other than he caught I believe the throw from John Brown, kind of a trick play.
Yeah, trick play, yeah.
But they'll throw the ball around is what I'm getting at. When you get touchdowns, you have 8 touchdowns from Diggs, 7 from Gabriel Davis, 5 from Isaiah McKenzie, 4 from Cole Beasley, and then a bunch of other guys chipping in 3. I mean, the ball could go anywhere, and that's what worries me. Yeah, I think that Marlon and Peters and even Jimmy Smith will spend their time on Stephon Diggs, but it's not just Diggs that you got to worry about. It's all those other guys. So I think this could be a big game for guys like Averett and Tramon Williams if activated.
Well, Tony, let me kind of change up the question then, and I'll let you say, but I want to know your thoughts on this. With Glenn, that's a great point, the way they spread the ball out. How concerned are you with a guy like Patrick Queen in coverage?
Well, that's the thing. I was going to mention Patrick Queen and even Harrison, a couple of rookies. LJ Fort certainly is the heady veteran there. Queen has had a really good rookie year. We're not even doubting what he brings to the table, and I suspect he's going to have a great career with the Ravens going forward. He will. He's good. But he has a difficult time in coverage, and that could be because he's young and just trying to get adapted to this, to the system, and didn't have the offseason to really work through some things, and that's fine. That would really be my concern. We didn't hear much from him in this game against the Titans, but that's okay. I think that he's going to be critical for those, especially covering the tight ends out of the back, coming off the line. Somebody like a Dawson Knox, somebody like a Beasley. Queen has to be able to stay home and kind of make sure that he doesn't get caught up in that pass rush, if you will. They're going to try, again, Wink's going to blitz. We know that. He's going to bring the pressure. But I'm concerned about Queen because he's a rookie in this big moment. Can he step up and do what he needs to do? And I would agree with Humphrey. I would rather have Humphrey. I know everybody's going to say Jimmy Smith is the best cover corner that we have. He can be if he's healthy. I just think Humphrey is just a physical presence. He will disrupt Diggs' routes coming off of the line, because I noticed that they played a lot of press coverage on the receivers in this past game. They didn't allow a lot of space. It just, Tannehill, you got to give him credit. He threw some nice passes to Brown and dropped them in. And that, Humphrey did some good job. He did a good job of covering. He just couldn't get to the ball. But again, to your point, he's looking up and not wondering what's going on there. But I think, to your point, I think Patrick Queen, I'm concerned about him. As long as he stays home and he doesn't get burned, I think he'll be fine. But again, I'm okay with our secondary matching up against these receivers. I just don't want to see Josh Allen rolling out and having too much time, and then our secondary just kind of sort of giving up, thinking, okay, is he going to run? Because, we forgot that Josh Allen can run the football. I think, he's going to take off a few times. He's not Lamar, but he can run.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's another factor that we have to look at as well.
Great point. Well, you guys let us know what you think. I think that's a great question. Who do you see as which unit do you see as being most impactful? The rushing attack of the Ravens, the passing attack of the Bills. But not only that, who do you want over there in charge of taking a guy like Stephon Diggs out of the game? How do you see the Ravens doing that? So let us know what you think. Give us all your comments. We love to interact with you guys. So be certain to do so, and we'll talk to you guys soon.